Welcome to Shift. We have Shayla Reaves, WCCO morning anchor and reporter and author today. Welcome, Shayla.
Thank you for having me. So glad to be with you today.
Well, welcome to the western suburbs.
Yes, thank you for having me today. Glad to be out here.
Yeah. So, Shayla, were you just at home? Were you in, do you say it, Tennessee?
Yes, I was in Tennessee just a week ago. My mom just celebrated a birthday, so it was nice to go home and spend a little bit of time with her. And admittedly, when I go home, the accent comes out, but there's no one at home to call me out for it because we probably all sound the same there. But yes, it was good to spend some time with her, and then my godson as well. I spent a little bit of time with him. He was visiting from New York with my childhood friend, so I got to spend a little time with all of them for a few days, which was good. I love an opportunity to sleep in as much as I do like waking up early in the morning here and getting everyone started with their day. I have no trouble falling back into my sleeping in pattern when the opportunity presents itself. So,
What time
yes.
do you have to be at work?
So to get the morning started here, I usually start at 5 a.m. We're getting on the road to be somewhere to tell you what's going on at 6 a.m. So usually if you see me on my regular shift, I'm out in the 6 o'clock hour in the community kind of telling you something interesting, fun, or introducing you to someone in the neighborhood or trying something new. Usually around 6:15, 6:45, and then we've also just added our new streaming show in the 8 o'clock hour, which Pauline Lee and I are co-anchoring that from 8:20 to 8:50.
So you are going solid for a few hours. Yeah.
Yes, we stay extra busy. Our show now is 5 hours. We've got 5 to 7 a.m. on television with Heather and AJ anchoring that. And then we have the streaming from 7 to 9. And then they come back on TV from 9 to 10. And then I'm in the talker segments there for the 9 o'clock hour. And then anchor the noon show Monday through Friday. So we have no shortage of places to find us.
How do you find your stories?
So a lot of what we find, some of it is people reaching out to tell us, hey, we have this very cool thing going on in the community that we want you to know about. Some of it is us, just kind of, we'll be on social media in different places, seeing what's going on. And then it's also, people just, letting us know what's going on and us kind of keeping an eye and plugged into, what's happening in the community. So it's a mix of different things and places. Sometimes people even call the station in and let us know that way as well what's going on, or write in as well via email and let us know.
Well, you moved up here in 2020.
Yes.
What was that like?
That was probably my most interesting television job search moving experience because I came here during COVID. And so unlike any other job experience, I couldn't come into the station because of COVID protocols. So I did all of my interviews in a hotel lobby. Everybody had to come to the lobby to meet me. I had a video that Jason DeRusha and Heather shot walking through the station to show me what the station looked like. And then I couldn't go into my apartment, like the apartment that I ended up moving to. I had to do all of those details via internet and phone, trying to get all of those details sorted out because I knew I wouldn't be able to come back flying to do those details and sort that out. And so I had the fewest details of any place that I ever moved. But there was something about here that, the experience I had in meeting the people that I met from the station, it just said something about here. I don't know what it is, but I just felt like I was supposed to give it a try. And I just really liked the people. I really liked what I heard. And we just really took a chance on each other. And it's been the best job that I've ever had. Both the experience I'm having at the station, the experience I'm having in the community, and my people experience has been a very positive one.
Wow, and you've worked a lot of places.
I have. I grew up in Tennessee. I went to school outside of Chicago, and then I worked in Louisville, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, Tampa, Florida, Greenville, North Carolina, and now I'm here, and hopefully here for a while because I'm tired of moving. And so I always say, I'm hopefully here for a while, and hopefully they don't get tired of me. So,
So you have kind of you've dived into the community, and one of the things I've heard is that you're trying to make TV sort of more accessible to different kinds of viewers.
yes, yes. One of the things, or I guess a couple of things that have followed me regardless of where I have lived, people like to talk to me, and if I have to learn sad news, I want to learn it from you. And I know that for this particular community, 2020 was a challenging year. There was the murder of George Floyd. I was in North Carolina at that time when that occurred. And I felt, and I've tried to be more intentional later in life, I felt that the specific things that I do well would be impactful in this particular community at a time like now. I had never been to Minnesota before moving here for this job. In fact, how I ended up here at all, in part, I was attending a virtual conference online for journalists, and I knew I wanted to leave where I was, but I knew it was going to be a needle in a haystack trying to figure out where to be in the middle of a pandemic when you couldn't travel to go find something. And I'm always someone who interviews better in person, and I just always have better in-person interactions. So I happened to do this virtual conference sitting in my living room, and I hop in one of the rooms, and I see an old news director from my very first TV station. And so I hop in the room, and she and I are talking, and she says, you know, they're looking for an anchor and reporter in Minnesota. And I said, oh, I didn't know that, but I will talk to anybody that wants to talk to me. And so I ended up hopping into another room, talking to our then news director, and she said, can you hold on for a second? I've got another call, but I want to push it back. And she wanted to talk longer. And so my husband said, he's sitting right out of frame in a recliner, and he said, you're going to hear from her. And so we ended up talking longer, and I ended up eventually flying out here, and then, eventually all the pieces came together for me to come out here. But I say all that to then say the things that I do well, those particular things, people like to talk to me, and I have to learn sad news. I want to learn it from you. The year that 2020 was, I felt that those two things would be impactful here at a time like then. And people receive all of us differently in what I do as a journalist. And I felt that and I look at myself also as a place for stories to land. And so if people had a level of comfort to reach out to me specifically and say, oh, I feel comfortable talking to her, or I feel comfortable sharing something with her, that's one more story that we have a chance to learn about as a newsroom, one more person or story that we have a chance to introduce to our viewers, which is one more experience that we can connect with the community, which is essentially, one more experience that we can connect with our audience. And that's just by virtue of how I'm showing up in the world and being a person that someone said, I feel comfortable reaching out to. And so I felt that would be impactful here at a time like now. And so that's how and why I decided to come here. And also, a lot of times I've experienced when you go to a station or really any job, they have a description of what the job is. And then in my experience in most places, you go there and they're like, this is what they want the reporter to do. And they have this job description, and I tend to be covering, in most of my career, it would be early morning reporting, crimes and fires and shootings. This was the first job that I've had where it felt more like they were saying, what are the things that you do well, and how do we find a home for those? Outside of, if you were to ask me, like, who are you, or like, how would you describe yourself? I would describe myself as a creative, deep thinker that loves to laugh and help other people see the best of who they are. I happen to work in news. It's what I do. It's not who I am as a person. And I felt that this job has been the most in alignment with who I am as a person. And I get to bring the most of me as a person to television and share that with people every morning. So I get to introduce people to their neighbors. One of the first things that people told me when I moved here was people from Minnesota love Minnesota, and they love to know what you love about Minnesota. So
We'd like to talk about ourselves.
And so it's been really nice to get to go out and try Minnesota things. And I think in television, a lot of times people think that it's supposed to be this really perfect manicured thing where you're good at and you've perfected it before you've put it on. I go on TV and try a lot of things that I'm not good at, and I'm trying them for the first time. And, you know, snowboarding for the first time, you know, what else? I've done so many things for the first time. Fishing, we did fishing, we kissed a fish, we got on a bull and fed a bull a donut on television. We've done so many things, or I've done so many things for the first time, but my hope as a byproduct of that, I'm not the tallest person, the fastest person, you can put any kind of description on that, but my hope is that other people feel inspired in their real life to go out and try something new, because you don't have to do it in front of a camera, but, you know, you can see that somebody in this space that, you know, there's this expectation for it to be like you're perfecting it before you get on. I mess up on television all the time, but you can go out and try real things and embrace this place that we all call home too. You don't have to do it in front of a camera, but you can still get out and enjoy it and not have to be great at everything you try.
So you are very comfortable talking about your strengths and what you do well. How did you discover those and to really name them?
That was a really long journey, I think, for me, because I think I spent a lot of time looking for news to show me who I was. Like probably all the way through my 20s, like I had this vision for what I expected my career to be and where I wanted to be by, I want to be here by the time I'm 30, and I had all these ideas. And then by the time I got to 30, I had gotten, you know, very few things on that list. And so then I got over 30, and I'm like, okay, well, these are the things that I got by the time I was 30. These are the things that aren't there. Why have I gotten certain things on that list? Why have I not gotten, why is the goalpost moved for others? And so I think it's because there's learning that happens at different phases of life, and there were maybe things that I needed to still learn along my journey that didn't happen in the time that I wanted those things to happen. And so maybe where I thought that I wanted to be wasn't where I ultimately needed to be. And so even though the goalposts moved, I feel like it was great, because I think sometimes the visions and the goals and the dreams that we have for ourselves are sometimes too small. And, you know, I think that for myself, I had always said, I want to be on the anchor desk. And I finally made it to the anchor desk, but then now that I'm at the anchor desk, that's not like all that I want to do. Like I actually still like being out in the community. Like they've asked me at the station before, they're like, well, would you just want to be in the building? I don't think I just want to be in the building. Like I like exactly what I do now, which is a mix of both, because I still like the ability to be connected to people and, you know, what's actually what I do in the morning, and then the mix of, you know, being on the desk at noon, because you just have a different connection with people when you actually get to be out. Even coming to something like this, where you actually get to come out and engage and interact, it's just a different experience when you have to leave the building and you get to talk to the people that, you know, are a part of, you know, watching you at home, or a part of, you know, that you are part of their day.
Yeah, you get to know who you're talking with.
Right,
You
right.
get to understand that. So the other thing I notice about you is you're very positive. How do you do that all the time?
I don't know. I guess I've always sort of been this way. and even when I'm, down about something, and I think even when I was a kid, thinking back on it, I noticed about myself, I'm also very creative, just crafting and making things. Um, Even when I would be feeling down about something, I would make really colorful, vibrant crafts. And then I would get myself back to feeling good. And then you'd like tuck it away, and then you go back to life and whatever life had going on. I don't know. I've just always kind of been that way. Or even, when things do feel challenging, then I always kind of get myself back to feeling good or finding the positive spin on things. I'm not sure exactly why I'm that way.
With crafting, do you think you see it with your eyes and that vibrancy helps you feel better?
Probably that could be the case. That could be the case, quite possibly. Yeah, I think so. And I always love bright colors. We were just talking about my closet. My
Yep.
closet looks like a pack of Skittles. It literally does. It's like I have probably every color imaginable. But yes, I have just a very vivid imagination. I always, am thinking about things in that way. I was a creative writer before I knew that I wanted to be a journalist. I've always just been a creative person, and I'm not sure if that at all lends itself to, the positive piece in any way.
Right.
But that's always sort of been a feature of who I am and how I show up.
Yep. And so part of that creative writing led her to write the book.
Yes.
And you brought the book
Oh, yes.
that you actually got published,
Yes.
Echo in the Distance.
Yes.
And tell us what the book is about.
Sure. So I'll tell you, it's about Dr. King. It's a tribute to Dr. King. And I'll tell you first, this journey started for me back in 2002 when I was a freshman at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. And they had a written expression competition, and anyone on campus could enter this competition. I happened to enter it and was selected the winner for this competition. And I performed the piece in 2003. But I always thought that this particular piece would be a great illustrated book, but on my ramen noodle budget / student loans, I did not have the resources to do that at that time. However, life happens, and you go on, you get into your career and everything, and I always kind of had that idea in the back of my mind that was something that I wanted to do more. This was something I wanted to do more with. So when I moved to Minnesota, my husband said, "You've been talking about this for years. Why don't you go ahead and do something with it?" So in 2022, his gift to me was like helping me finance putting this into the world. And so I got about the business of figuring out, well, how do you publish a book? How do you do
How
this?
do you publish a book?
Well, I found a publishing partner.
Yeah?
And then I wanted to make sure that I partnered with anyone that could benefit from any exposure that this book might create.
Oh, yep.
So I partnered also with an illustrator from North Minneapolis, and I really loved her illustration of Dr. King. And
How did you find her?
Instagram, where all the young people hide. I was on there, and it was someone else that I knew, and I saw someone next to her that I didn't recognize. I said, "Oh, who's this person?" And I click on their picture. All these beautiful illustrations appeared, and I said, "Oh, this is great." And I happened to see an illustration on her page of Dr. King, and he actually looked like him. And I said, "Oh, well, I should reach out to her." And I said, "I don't know if you've ever illustrated a children's book, but if you would love to grow in this way, I would love to work with you." And she said, "I have not, but I would love to grow in this way." And so we worked together for about a year to put the book into the world. And so this book, it is, and this is also what I like to tell people. For me, this was a book. But for others, I know that they may be sitting on something else that they haven't put into the world. But this sat on my computer, essentially like a Word document after I wrote it, after 2002. I didn't do anything with it. I just had it sitting there like an idea that I would love to do more with this. And it's just sitting there waiting for something to be done with it um, for all these years. Um, and since putting it into the world, this has taken me on a whole different journey. It took me to New York. It took me to CBS Mornings. I sat with Gayle King and talked about this book, and it's taken me into classrooms and all these spaces that I wouldn't have entered if I hadn't had the courage to take this book or this piece that was sitting on my computer for 20 years and put it into the world. And while for me, this was a poem, a spoken word piece, for someone else, it might be something else that you're sitting on that you haven't put into the world. And so I have enjoyed the opportunity to be in spaces to tell people, at the very least, whatever that thing is that you are sitting on that you have not put into the world, you never know who may benefit from whatever that is that you're telling yourself, I'm past my time, or it's too late for me, or it's, maybe I can't do it, or maybe it's, whatever excuse you've given yourself. Because I've been most amazed on the journey that I'm on with this book at how, how teachers have incorporated the book into the classroom, how parents have connected with the book, and then I've also, tried not to box myself into where it can be, how it can connect with people, where it can go, because you just never know how your idea or how that thing that you have not put into the world or that you found the courage to put into the world can connect and inspire other people. And so that's probably been one of the most rewarding parts of this journey. It's just, I went into one classroom. It was a Franklin Middle School in Minneapolis, and the students invited me in to be the first guest for their student podcast. And they had some very thoughtful questions. Another student in the class spent 10 days using a program called Tinkercad to create a 3D model of the Lincoln Memorial where Dr. King had delivered his I Have a Dream speech in preparation for my visit. And they just have so many really creative ways that they are engaging with the book that I never thought of when I put it into the world. Another group of students, I went to visit them, and they were doing a drum performance to welcome me to the school. And it's just so many neat things that I'm experiencing just that I wouldn't have experienced if I left this on my computer. And so I just encourage other people, just, whatever is in the back of your head, you're like, should I go ahead and do that? You should, because, it might even be somebody in this room that needs what you haven't shared.
Yeah. So how did Dr. King inspire you?
Well, I would say in this particular, I want to share a couple of things with you because I didn't answer your first question very well. This particular piece, for starters, and then I'll answer that one. This particular piece, I had sought to connect a younger generation with the experience of what might it have been like if you were in the crowd when he delivered that speech or that address. And, I wasn't here then. I wasn't born at that time. So a lot of the language that you experience when you read it, it's a lot of just listen, just watch, just look. It's language that kind of encourages the reader to participate and pay attention to as if they're involved in the experience. So I wanted the reader of it to feel like they were participating in the moment. But then I also wanted, as you look at the book and go through the pages, you'll see towards the end that the illustrations, you see more kids. And I wanted kids to feel like they have agency in realizing Dr. King's dream, and that it's not just these words that we talk about on MLK Day every year, but it's actually something that they have an active role and they can be a part in the realization of the dream. It's not just something that we talk about once a year, but you start seeing towards the latter pages, it's kids that are carrying his image and his picture, and they're a part of it. And then you also notice the diversity of the people, and that it's not something that is just for one group of people. It's something for everyone to be a part of, and that we all have a role in realizing the dream that he shared all those years ago. So that's the larger message of it, and that it's not too late, that dreams can come true, and it all starts with all of us, that we all have a role in realizing that.
And it is that we will all be treated equally.
Yeah, yes. And that we all have a role in getting to this better world, and we can do that together. And that for kids, they can carry on the baton and that message too. So, and I wanted them to see themselves in the book. So, yeah, that's pretty much that part.
Mm-hmm. Do you have questions?
Good morning. I curl my hair every morning to you. And I really enjoy what you bring to the television in the morning.
Thank you.
Can I say we enjoy you very much, and I think you are an amazing role model for lots of girls and young women in our community. So we're grateful. I'll just say that God called you here.
Thank you.
Yesterday, I happened to be in Atlanta, ending a conference on vocation, which is a very Lutheran concept about calling. And so here you are talking about kind of getting called to the Twin Cities to do your work. And I went to the MLK Museum yesterday, and I'd never been there before. So I didn't know this is what your book was about. I missed that, curling my hair one morning.
Yes.
So thank you is really what I want to say. And maybe my question for you is, what else do you think you're supposed to accomplish in your work after today?
Oh, like in my lifetime, you mean?
Yeah,
Maybe?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
What's one of your dreams?
So, okay, I have so many things I want to do. So one of the things I think that's been really neat about the book process is that it's created different dreams that I didn't have before I started the book. I think one of them is, because I have other books that I want to put into the world. I have two other things that I've written that I definitely want to do. But I think it would be great. I want to grow my personal platform so that they are meaningful for other people, because I like to create space for other people to be found. And so if there's a way for me to create space for other lesser-known artists to be found, for lesser-known creatives to be found. Like, for example, in Tennessee, there's this artist, and I wish I had thought of it when I was putting this iteration of the book. So if I do have a chance to put another version of it out, I would love to include his art, even if it's an illustration in the beginning of the book, out. But there's an artist, he's a great pencil artist that does this incredible, he did an incredible drawing of Dr. King. And I remember my mom, I was talking to her, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is he doing with this art? And she's like, I don't know, he just works in a factory. And it's like, there's all these people that are very talented that just don't have, like, they don't know how to take what it is that they're doing and connect it to places where people can find them. And just, connect them to an audience so that people can find them and support what it is that they're doing, because that has the power to change their trajectory or their life or create a different experience for them. So maybe they're in a position to either have a livelihood that is more in alignment with what their actual passions are too. I would love to be positioned to do something like that. I don't know. I think the nice thing about what I do here in general, just the work that I do on television obviously is nice because I get to introduce people to their neighbors, but it's also, kind of showing people who in the community they can go out and support, and then it has the power to, introduce people and they can make friends and maybe find new people that they can support. But if there's a way to, increase that or find new avenues to do that type of work in either a larger platform or a larger scale or in more ways. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that, but I feel like in some way my work is elevating voices and finding new ways for people to be found, because it's not just, I don't feel that it's just about me. It's about using the space that I have to create space for others. And so I'm still learning all the ways that I can do that and utilize the space that I have to do that.
Did you have a question?
Thank you for being here and sharing your story.
Yes.
Earlier, you talked about the way you show up inspires relationships with strangers and people to share their stories. Can you talk about those ways you show up that allows that?
Oh, sure. I think, sure. Sometimes I'll be at the grocery store and people will just come up and I'll look around and my husband has left me on the aisle. So it's just, I think sometimes it's just the level of comfort that in how I just how I present myself or exist. Like I tell people all the time, if you see me in person, please feel free to come up and say hi. The way that I am here, like this is me on television, this is me in person in a store, wherever. I am this way. And I think it's just the level of comfort that people have. It makes it so that they feel okay to approach me or they feel okay to share who they are. And I think it's not that, I feel like just how I show up in the world is authentic, and it's not that I'm being anything other than who I am. And that makes it so that people have a level of comfort to share who they are too. And I don't think it's anything that you necessarily teach. It's just being who you are. It inspires a level of comfort that someone says, I want to go tell her what's going on with me.
Do you have a moment in your career where you were out in community that really stands out as being maybe something that you never thought, or something that was just very moving?
Let me think if I've got one in particular. I've had a few different, I mean, there's moments, and I've got some that are sticking out, not specific to here, but there are moments, I think, where you have to be a person, and it's not like just about being a journalist, it's just being a person. I remember when I was working in Ohio, I think there was, pretty sure it was Ohio, there was a fire or something, and somebody needed something, and I think we were just down the street from a store, and so we went to the store and got somebody some pants, like at the store, just because they needed some, and we were there. But it's just something that is just a human thing to do because somebody needed that in that moment. And we just happened to be there and have the capacity to do that. There are other times where I think I'm surprised that, I mean, we'll be surprised at the things that people share and the moments that they do. I think we came home, we were at a story, this was also in Ohio. This lady had a situation, she came home early in the morning from the hospital, and she had her hospital gown on still, and unfortunately she had been involved in a shooting, and you never know what people are going to tell you, or what they're going to be sharing, or what their level of comfort is and what they're going to share. And so my photographer, and in real live television, you really don't know what you're going to get. And so we're having this very frank conversation in the morning, and I had asked her, where were you hurt? And she starts rolling this gown up, and we don't know where this is going to stop. And he doesn't know where he's going to go. And he's just trying to where do I go with this camera? But I'm sharing it just to say that there's sometimes in how you show up in the world a level of comfort where people are just completely honest and they will share, like, oh, you asked me this, well, I'm going to answer this, and, I don't care if the cameras are rolling. I'm going to show you where that went. And, okay. But, I think just the experience that I've had, I think one of the things, this one does stick out to me. When I worked in Florida, I have learned that how I show up, some of the things that I have liked least about what we have to do as a journalist have become easier for me over the years. I don't have to do this as much anymore, definitely not in the role that I have here. But one of the things that I liked the least was having to do door knocks after someone had lost a relative. But it's always important to give a family member a chance to share how they remember someone that they love outside of the experience that we're there to speak to them about. And I remember there was a crossing guard who had been killed in Florida, and I was dreading having to go do this door knock just down the street from where he was killed. And I remember that not long before we needed to go on air, I guess his significant other had seen that I was the person that was covering the story. She had seen either a segment or something shortly, a little bit earlier in the morning. And because she saw that I was the person covering it, she came down the sidewalk to do an interview, and I didn't have to do the door knock. And so I always have said that the compassion and the care that you show someone else, like what you're showing someone else today, it matters today, but it also matters 2 or 3 weeks from now, because someone else will have that same expectation of care and compassion when they have something going on in their lives, because they've seen that care and compassion that you showed to someone else. And so that part of my job that I liked the least became easier because people saw the care and compassion that I gave to someone else. And so I didn't have to do the knock because she just came down the sidewalk, because she knew, I was there, and how I treated others, she had an expectation of how I would treat her. And then I guess one other story that's memorable, and it's a family that I've stayed in touch with. There was a family that had lost their daughter in a crash, and I've covered many crashes during my career. And it was either Christmas Day or day before Christmas, several months later, the husband or the father of the daughter that was killed had reached out to me and said, I know you don't know us, but you covered our daughter's crash, and it would just mean a lot to my wife if you reached out and just said, just let her know that you're thinking of her. So I just reached out and just did that. And then we have stayed in touch over the years. I haven't worked in Florida since 2017, and so I send them like a Christmas gift every year. And when I visit Florida, I don't get there all the time, but I always try to see them when I'm in the Tampa area. But we've stayed in touch and continued a relationship even after I've left. I think sometimes people look at folks and what I do, and they're like, oh, it's just a story for them. And I think for some people in what we do, it is. But I still recognize that it's people. Like, there are people, and a lot of times when, specifically when you're a reporter that's covering more of the challenging, hard news types of things, people are interacting with you during the more difficult, stressful times of their life, some of them with cameras coming at them or a microphone at a time where they've never had one. They're going through something that's really stressful, and they are trying to process whatever it is that they're going through, and then you're asking them to talk about it too. And it's a lot, but they're human. And while we still have to extend the opportunity, and I've had so many times where I've just said, I'm here. I don't go up with the camera and the microphone. I said, hi, I'm Shayla. Here's my card. I want to give you this opportunity. And I know you may not want it at this time, but I just want you to know that if you would like it, here, I'm here. I'll be here for a couple of hours, and feel free to come back if you'd like to later. And some people will come back, some people won't, and that's okay either way. But it's just giving them the opportunity, but realizing and recognizing that they're human too, and they're going through real human things.
Yeah, and recently you lost your dad.
Yes.
Who you were very close to.
Yeah.
And what have you learned through the grief process?
I have learned, I've learned a lot, actually. I wrote some very specific things, and I probably can share those with you in case I help someone else. Let me see if I can find that fast. Someone had reached out and asked me, because they had asked me specifically, how are you able to be in such like a pleasant space so soon after having lost him? And I think some of it, of course, was therapy, because I did do therapy after I lost my, I was doing therapy long term, because I almost lost my dad. We almost lost him in 2008, and then he ultimately passed in 2022.
Yeah.
But someone had reached out and asked me, how did I navigate actually losing him? Some of the things that I learned in that experience of actually losing him is, for me, my dad is everything he instilled in me, and for me, he is more than the actual body that we buried. He's the love that he showed, the compassion he shared, and the lessons that he taught me. And for me, he's more than the final days on earth. And the way that I honor him is to keep living and doing all the things that I've always done in life that have made him proud. And so if in death I became so overcome by grief that I stopped doing those things, I think that would be difficult or sad for him. So my light has shined as bright as it has because of the things that I've learned from him and the things he's instilled in me. So the greatest gift that I could give him is to keep going. And other things, we take peace, my mom and I, that we honored his wishes. He wanted to come home before he passed, so my mom worked really hard to make sure that we got him from the hospital to home. He ultimately passed at home, so we made sure that that happened. I always feel like whenever I need him, he's there. Like, if I have had moments where I'll sit in my car and I'll just have a conversation with him and just, tell my dad what I feel like it is that I would want him to know in that moment or in that day. And, you will still have days where you cry or, it hits you more than others, but, I still at the same time hold on to joy. And that, my dad was a very, happy person, and so in holding on to joy, I feel like I'm holding on to the realest, truest parts of him. And my dad remained very strong even in death, treating death as a part of life. And in his final hours, he encouraged me to be strong too. You really don't know how strong you are until strong is the only option you have. And I think that my dad always knew that I was strong, and I'm only, still in some ways beginning to see the depth of that strength within myself. And this is something I found shortly after, but I love this quote that someone shared. Her name's Nicole Walters. It says, "Every day that goes by when you don't share your story and hold on to the answers, someone remains in the suffering that God delivered you from. And I'm more scared of leaving this earth with my answers than being judged for them while I'm here." And so when someone had reached out to me, asking me kind of, what are your thoughts about grief, or what are your thoughts about that? I took a few days to kind of process my experience, but it was important for me to share, where I was and my thoughts, because they may help someone else in what they're dealing with too.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to remember. Well, lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about crafting, because we have a lot of crafters. I just want to hear what kinds of things that you make.
Oh, sure. I make all kinds of things. Jewelry, And I taught myself how to do stuff, so I'll be like, oh, I wonder if I can do that. So jewelry, picture frames, keychains. I taught myself how to like repurpose a chair and just all kinds of stuff. I have a craft playlist on YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel called Shayla's Creative Side, and then I have a Let's Craft playlist. So it has a whole bunch of really cool things on there that I've made over the years. It's all kinds of stuff. I used to, when I lived in Florida, I would go to that was my favorite thing to do, is go to the salvage shop and find things for cheap and just like, oh, I wonder if I could remake this or repurpose that. And so then I would, take things and redo them, or if I wanted to learn how to redo them, you could get something for cheap and just try it out. So that's kind of my thing. And then I made Christmas gifts for my coworkers this past year. So I made like little picture frames and different keychains and all kinds of things for folks. So yeah, that's kind of, it's also like a stress release for me. So if I feel anxious or I'm working on something, I'll dive into a craft project as my little escape.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, it has been a joy to talk with you and get to know you more. Thank you for coming and sharing yourself here.
Thank you for having me. It's been so wonderful to spend time with you all. I appreciate it. Yes. Yes, thank you. I'll have to get another picture.